move, Chris.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're located today. My name is Eliot Harper, and I'm one of the co-organizers of the Marketing Cloud Developer Group that Matt and I actually started back in 2015. So it's been going from strength ever since. And we're very fortunate today to, I guess, unite with the Sydney and Brisbane Marketing Cloud user groups for this special session today. So with us, we've got myself. I'm Eliot. I'm based in actually a place called Orange in New South Wales in Australia, in the middle of the country. Just recently moved from Melbourne. I work for Cloud Kettle as a technical architect. They're Cloud Kettle are a partner based in Canada. And Jarrett, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Jarrett Bush. I am currently working for Uni of Melbourne as part of their One CRM project, which is sort of, I guess, CRM and Marketing Cloud intertwined. I'm obviously on the Marketing Cloud side of things and have been for rather a long time, since Matt and Eliot and I worked together years and years ago.
And Matt, you really need no introduction, but you want to introduce yourself anyway.
I guess I can introduce myself anyway. These days I'm working at DXC as a principal business analyst architect type thingy, but my time spent poking around as a solution architect inside Marketing Cloud, which is sort of what I enjoy doing. Yeah, I can't think of too many more things to say about myself. Likewise, Eliot, welcome to everyone. It's great to see everyone here. Did you want to start rolling on to the next slide, Eliot? Sure. Okay, so welcome, be awesome, and help share all our Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane community Salesforce Marketing Cloud groups with a friend. I think we've got 7,000 members on LinkedIn. We've got 1,500 members on the member group. We've got the Slack channels. We've got all sorts of things there to help people with. But, you know, that's happened because of the community. It's everyone sharing and just been participating. It's not about nobody in particular. It's just a community thing that we've been doing over the years. And everyone's made it awesome and possible. Do you want to go to the next slide again, Eliot? So we've got a URL called sfmcdg.org. And on there, we've always shared links to things that we feel are important for the group. I think Eliot's just going to click on that link now. Maybe not. When you click on that link, now you'll see at the bottom of the link a README. So that's everything on our GitHub. And I love how the slides are sort of moving around. But if you scroll to the top, you've also got the chance, just if you scroll up to the top, to click on Asia Pacific or Europe, Middle East, Africa, or North America, and to see all the events that the groups are doing. So it's sort of like what this process, what we're seeing here is a daily snapshot of what's on all the Trailblazer groups. But it helps us to see what's happening globally for Marketing Cloud dev groups or user groups. So if we just scroll down that list, it quickly surfaces events. So there's one, Marketing Cloud App Exchange apps. They're doing that over in Poland. I didn't know about that until now. So what we're hoping to do with this is just help surface everything that's going on. Especially these days, we've changed a little bit about the ways we work. And we're now working at home, doing more presentations, doing things online more. A lot of these events are virtual. So let's learn and join. For me, being involved is about sharing stuff together. You go to Stack Exchange, you go anywhere, you learn stuff. You learn stuff by following on with what's been presented today. You learn by reading what Adam or Eliot or Gordon have shared on Stack Exchange. You learn by sharing yourself. So it's a community collaboration of sharing and just trying to surface what's been done globally. So that's the purpose of this link. SFMCDG.org. So that stands for Salesforce Marketing Cloud Dev Group. And it's an organization, so it's .org. Incidentally, it's the same as our Twitter handle too, SFMCDG. That's it from me. Thanks everyone for joining, and I'm looking forward to learning some more again today.
Great, thanks, Matt. So next, we do have, or at least we're supposed to have, Chris up to present his use case. Hang on 1 second, click on the wrong button here.
I've moved Chris's slides to the end.
Right, okay, apart from this slide. So I'll have to skip through, sorry, so we're moving on to Jarrett, are we?
I can roll on if you'd like.
Okay, great, thanks, Jarrett.
Okay, so probably contrary to what this is saying, what I'm showing to, there's nothing extraordinary about what I'm showing you today, but it's probably to deal with what Automation Studio doesn't do rather than what it does. Can you skip to the next slide, please, Eliot? I'll basically talk through what I'm going to go through, and then I'll just sort of show you the scripts and the like. Can you go? Oh, one of my slides is gone. Can you go back one? You might have double jumped. Oh no, hang on. There we go. No, sorry, you were right. You're right. So there's two processes that I'm going to basically talk through today, and they both relate to the fact that when Marketing Cloud automations fail, or processes in general fail or aren't working properly, it's pretty easy to be alerted about them. But when they're not running at all, it's much harder to tell. The two processes that I'm going through, that I'll take you through, are essential automation monitoring, which is basically just monitoring what you would deem to be business critical automations, and then triggered email monitoring, which is really just checking whether or not emails are triggered emails of any description are in an active state. Next slide, Eliot. Okay, so they're both in and of themselves pretty simple. The essential automation monitoring really is just checking a list of automations based on their name to see whether or not they've run within what you would define as a set schedule. I run the whole lot of it with really just two data extensions and an automation. The automation's got a relatively simple script and a verification step. There's probably 1 point of difference between the two processes that I have here. The alert mechanism that I have in both of them is different. And I probably prefer the verification step, and I'll show you why later. But if you skip to the next one, Eliot. The triggered email monitor is really just, it's a monitor to basically check triggered sends and journey sends. You can check them both at the same time, based on your account having basically operating on a set of rules, I guess. And it alerts you when emails get pushed into a non-active state, as in if they're paused. The reason why we built this at the company that I was working at, both of these processes, was really that once we had a lot of people operating inside the platform, we found that people would pause automations with the intention of changing them and rescheduling them, and would forget to do it. And that would either be, user error, or the platform would go down. And by the same token, emails that we had that set up that were triggered, be it in a journey or just as normal sort of API-driven triggered emails, they were getting paused with the intention of republishing and then starting them again, and they weren't getting started again. And from a business point, from the business, based on the sector that we were in, they were probably just a little bit more important than it's not an ideal user experience. Every time this sort of thing happened, it affected downstream systems. So we basically built these two processes as a fix for those things. I think at this point, I might just run you through, if I can share, Eliot, I might just run you through exactly what they look like inside Marketing Cloud.
Of course.
I think I want. Okay, can you see that okay? Do I need to zoom in? Is that a little bit better? Okay, so everything that I've got is sitting inside, for both automations, is sitting inside this one folder. I'll start with the required automation register. And really what that is, as I said, 2 data extensions. One is just for holding an error list. The other is really just a register of the automations that you want to keep track of. The table of the DE itself has got 3 fields: the name of the automation, the number of days between runs. So I sort of built it. We had automations that where some were daily automations, and it was critical that they ran daily. Some only ran weekly. Some would run once a month. So I needed to build a solution that would deal with all of those possibilities. And then the third field that I've got is in production, because we found that, I mean, it was generally COVID driven. We were switching automations on and off all the time. So I needed a way to be able to switch the premise of whether or not I'd actually check an automation on or off as well. So the process, for have these, this is just really all you need to do. So 1 is the premise of a daily, 7's a weekly, 30 might be a monthly. If I keep it as false, it's going to get skipped over by the script. If I switch it to true, it's basically going to run it. And from the point of view of the step before it, the checker, this is basically it. I say super simple, super short script that really all it's doing is using WS proxy to go, well, first of all, we retrieve a list of the automations that we want to check.
So,
where,
Jack, can you zoom in, please, just for...
well, is that better?
Much better, thank you.
Okay. So really initialize the data extension, grab all the records where in production is true, iterate through, sort of remove all the data from the error data extension, iterate through each of the records using WS proxy to get the last time that the actual automation run. And then there's basically a comparison further down that checks whether the last time that it ran is before today minus however many days you have as your minimum days between runs. If it does, if that basically comes back in the affirmative and it hasn't run when it should, it gets added to that data extension where we basically alert from. And from the point of view of the verification step again is very, very simple. The reason why I prefer sort of running the verification step, it's just checking out error list data extension to see whether or not there's records. The reason why I like it is because you can send a note within the email when it alerts. So our alert emails just go to sort of a common mailbox, but inside there, you can give some real detail on what's been run. And even if people have forgotten that this thing runs because they don't get triggered all that often, you can tell them that there is information there to be seen, and you can tell them where you can go to actually see that error list. And if you need to make modifications to the automations that are being checked, that's where you basically check them from. So yeah, reasonably simple. Turned out to be very, very effective though, and does actually pick up the automations that people inadvertently pause. The other one, which I'll very, very quickly go through as well, is the triggered email monitor. This one, again, just a script. This one's going to be a little bit harder to sort of show through, but again, it's just 2 data extensions, and really there's a monitored list of, so there's 2 things here. There's a monitored list of triggered emails. So if you, inside triggered emails, if there are any individual ones just inside triggered sends or the folders inside there, you can choose to pick up an external key, add them, set the monitor to true and save. And then when the automation and the script runs, it's going to check these individually. The process of checking Journey Builder emails is automatic within the script. So it basically checks over all of them within reason. So yeah, again, there's your list of triggered sends you want to go through and another data extension to log to. And now this one is obviously, as you can see, is a little bit more in depth and a little bit longer. The premise is it just basically runs through in order. Really what we had inside our account, we were only operating, you could set this up in any sort of business unit that you wanted to, but we were only operating from the one of them. And we had a naming convention on journeys that we set up there whereby basically anything that was in production would just have a sensible name, but anything that wasn't deemed production would just have test inside the name. So really the process of checking the Journey Builder triggered sends is using the REST API to go and get a list of all the different journeys that exist inside Marketing Cloud, skipping over the ones that basically have test somewhere inside them. The ones that don't have test somewhere inside them and are in production, you basically go through all the activities inside the journey itself, find email type activities, and then from there, go and retrieve the triggered send definition for them, grab the external key, see what state that triggered send is in. And if it's non-active or inactive, it basically returns back inactive. Then we've got this step, which is basically called notify the team, which really is just throwing an error across the entirety of the automation. This one alerts everybody, but the reason why I like that verification step is because, yes, this throws an error. Yes, this does send to your communal sort of list that something has gone wrong, but there's no great detail on sort of where you need to go to look. You need to know where to go to look. After we go through the journey sends, there's basically another little step here for triggered sends, which is getting those external keys from that data extension, iterating through them again, seeing what state those are in. Again, if they're inactive, potentially updating the notify team rule to be true rather than false. Yeah. And you can see that basically if notify team is true, it comes back, it throws an error. The whole automation basically, I guess, fails and alerts go out to everybody. So the idea is that obviously that all of these, all these processes are running on the email addresses that runtime errors go to. But in essence, that's it. Again, there's like a few SSJS functions in here that have been written specifically for pulling data. Most of them are pulling from the REST endpoints. There is a small bit of WS proxy in there. But apart from that, it's just a not too crazy, relatively simple script. That's it.
Yeah, thanks, Jarrett. So just you're using the programs object? Are you to get the activities from an automation in there? Search for program. Search for the word program. I'm just curious. No, maybe not.
For which one? Sorry.
Just curious about getting the activities from an automation. Either the available SOAP API objects for working with automations are somewhat cumbersome. But forward-looking statements ahead that there's a hint that we might see some change to the Automation Studio API in a kind of future release. I've got a kind of big wish list of all the things I want, but I just found it kind of awkward to work with. But it's a very elegant solution. Thanks for sharing it with us.
So just with that one, the monitor active triggered sends doesn't check user initiated sends inside automations. It only checks Journey Builder sends. So
okay.
The required automation checker that uses automation as opposed to programs, just because the last runtime can be retrieved from it.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, but yes, I sort of agree. Like it's difficult to know when to use program and when to use automation and what's sitting on both. And yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks again. So, Matt, unless you've got any strong objections, I think I'll move on to my session now.
Not at all. I've got lots of little ads I can sprinkle in here and there, but
sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
We've got
session flow.
Not a problem. We've got just to mention for O'Reilly, who have been supporting us with gifts to give people if they come on and be a 1-minute presenter. Last November, we had 17 1-minute presenters, and it was fantastic to hear from everyone giving their tips. This time round, we've had none, but we've still got the gifts coming in from O'Reilly, so 3 more people from November will get gifts for presenting, but we'll keep it open for the future. If anyone wants to make a really quick 1-minute presentation, message the group. We'll get it organised so that it can be featured in one of our meetup events. So that was one ad. I'll have lots more, but go ahead, Eliot. Start your presentation.
Great. Okay, fantastic. And actually, what I want to share with you today is actually quite a nice extension onto what Jarrett shared. It's a similar marketing operations automation, not to go and send out marketing communications, but just to put in checks and balances in place in your Marketing Cloud account, because you probably observed that when things do go wrong in Marketing Cloud, or the things that you should know about, you generally don't, and you have to go either manually looking for them or checking them. So I had a kind of similar requirement. Let me kind of discuss this problem statement. This isn't unique to a specific customer. I see this as actually a kind of recurring problem on many Marketing Cloud customers. So I created a simple automation for customers, in this case, that have a significant amount of users, like 47. Obviously, the more staff you have, staff and contractors frequently change. And when they do, admins were often overlooking disabling the corresponding user accounts for them. Additionally, people move on in an organization, staff roles change, and they may no longer require platform access. So you should be regularly checking all of your active Marketing Cloud users and disabling ones that don't require access. I have access to 47 different Marketing Cloud accounts at last count, and I'm surprised at how many I can actually still access when I probably shouldn't. It's just really kind of for security best practices to regularly check these, I'd say at a minimum every 30 days. And I would say that this is particularly more of an issue in the latest release, as previously, if you, let's say that I was an old ex-contractor or staff member, and I still have access. So that notification email with the access code would be typically sent to my work email address, unless I was cunning and change it to my personal email address before I left the company. And obviously, I assume you don't have access to your work email anymore, so you can't get the access code. Now, obviously, with the introduction of MFA, that whole email access code goes away. So all you need is a continued MFA access to one of those kind of 3 options, and you can get in as a back door if someone forgot to disable your user account. So what is the solution? Well, it's actually a really surprisingly simple solution that was very quick to build and doesn't require any advanced level of scripting expertise. And it's these type of scripts I find that are great to get started with server-side JavaScript, particularly, as it's kind of very straightforward use cases, and you can really learn or quickly pick up some of the syntax and fundamentals of the language. I find people often struggle to or choose to learn server-side JavaScript and choose some quite complex projects, which is a really bad starting point, because server-side JavaScript does come with a steep learning curve, particularly if if you don't know JavaScript. So, oh, hang on, let's go back here. So there are three components in this solution. Firstly, we've got a data extension. Secondly, there's an email. And thirdly, there's an automation, which runs a script activity and sends the email. So let's go and take a look at each one in turn. So firstly, let's go and take a look at our data extension. So here it is, and I've got a script that populates this data extension with all of the active users in the account when the script runs, and which I'll be looking at the end. So we've got, 4 fields, just email, so name, email, last login, and I'm actually populating the email using AMPscript. And you're probably familiar with it. If you've ever used any of the lookup functions, be it lookup or lookup rows, you'll know that you have to match against a specific value. So observe that I've put a somewhat unnecessary report field in there with a default value of true. So every time I add a record, it will just kind of, I need something to kind of filter or return all the rows in this row set. Yeah, there we have their name, email, and last login date from the platform. Now, before we take a look at the script, let's actually take a look at the next step and the resulting email. So with this data extension in mind, we'll take a look at the email. And while there's lots of confusing code in here, the vast majority of this code is CSS and HTML. So let's just jump down to the interesting stuff, which begins here. So here we've just got some AMPscript, and very simply to simply go and return all of the rows from that data extension of all the platform users, where this second argument 0 goes and gets all records. That is up to 2,000 records, and I'm using lookup ordered rows to return them by the date they last log in, kind of in latest first. And then I then go and I have a process loop in my AMPscript to loop through each single row and go and get the name, email, and that last login field. And then what I'm doing is, I'm just really interested in the past 30 days. I could have really accommodated for this in my script, but I feel that it kind of gives more flexibility in AMPscript. If I want to change this to 15 days or 60 days, or even go and use that data extension for something else, then I can do so. So here, what I'm using is the AMPscript date diff function to compare the last login date with today, and if it's the last login was greater than 30 days, then I'm displaying it in my email. And in this case, it just outputs a table row for all the fields in each of those returned by that lookup rows. Let's go and take a look at that kind of finished article then. So I can select any sendable data extension, or actually subscribe and all subscribers. It doesn't matter because we're not using personalized data from that. But yeah, so it just goes and retrieves all those records in that data extension. So out of the 10 we saw, you can see 7 actually haven't logged in for longer than 30 days. So that's kind of cool, and it's quite simple, right? If you've used AMPscript, there's certainly nothing complex going in here. It's just like a handful of lines. Now let's go and take a look at the actual automation and subsequent script activity. Very simple automation, just 2 steps. One is a script activity to go and populate that data extension, and secondly, an email activity to go and send an email to either an internal list, or perhaps you want to choose it. You have a sendable data extension of admin users who want to receive this notification email. So we go and crack open the script, and I'm just I'm going to have a go at just zooming in a bit, see how we go here. As it looks a bit better. So it's actually not quite as elaborate as Jarrett's script. It's really just a few lines. And again, so I thought this is kind of helpful for people getting started with AMPscript. I'll kind of, server-side JavaScript, because of course, in script activities and automation, it's exclusively server-side JavaScript, although there are kind of workarounds if you really need to use AMPscript. So firstly, let's take a look at lines 7 to 14. So here we're using WS proxy. For those of you who are unfamiliar with WS proxy, as its name implies, it's a proxy for the SOAP web service, and effectively providing an alternative option to the platform API functions, which are available both in AMPscript and server-side JavaScript. It's just certainly highly declarative, a lot easier to use than the procedural programming approach that you'd have to follow with the platform API functions. But here we can see the calls. Here we're defining the properties in this account user object that we're going to be retrieving. A filter will go and using the property active flag is equal to true, so it only returns the active users from the account. And then I go and call it by using this prox retrieve, and then the account user. There's 3 arguments here: account user, that's the object name, and then the columns I want to retrieve, and then the filter. And then what I do here, I'm going and it goes and gives me back obviously an array of objects, and I in what's called a kind of a results array, and I iterate through that results array, and I create individual objects which I stuff into or push into this empty user array on line 16. So I'm grabbing the name, email, and last login date from that payload response, and then I create an object. You can see and stuff in these key value pairs and push it in to that user array. For reasons I'll explain in a moment. Then I go and, before we go and populate the data extension, I want to clear it out. There are a few approaches. I mean, Jarrett showed you one just using the kind of call function. This is my personal favorite. It's much more kind of performant, whereas other ways of clearing a data extension require you to go and filter on something, right? We have to go and select all records where this value equals true, and it effectively iterates through those and deletes these. This just blows away an entire data extension. No matter if you've got 2,000 or 2 million records, it'll just go and clear the data using WS proxy. Very elegant. It's just done on a single line 29, although I've got a couple of variables to make it more readable to understand what's going on. But yeah, you're just passing the data extension key and this clear data action. And then finally, we all just go and insert records into the data extension. And for that, for really convenience, I'm using the platform core function of rows add. So firstly, we initialize that data extension key that I defined up here as user underscore report. And then we go and take that array that I hand rolled earlier from that payload response, and it's very elegant and simple, the rows add, because it's just corresponding name value pairs for or key value pairs for the corresponding field names in your data extension. So and then we just end up, so it clears the data extension and populates that just within a second or two, and then moves on to the next step and goes and sends the email. So that kind of concludes my presentation, and I'm wondering or kind of hoping, Chris has just joined us, fantastic. So I'm just going to promote him as a presenter. If you have questions about my solution or the one that Jarrett presented, I'll be happy to go and take them at the end. But Matthew, have you got anything kind of more to say or introduce Chris or give away?
Joe's going to make a comment about what you've presented, and certainly the WS proxy just makes doing that work so much more simple. There's a question on the chat there. Are we able to share your Jarrett's scripts on the SFMC DG GitHub, just as recipes, I guess. Are you okay if we do that, so people can have an opportunity to see the code?
Yeah, I can either make them as available as scripts. I'll see whether or not the automation process I've packaged up using Package Manager. If you want like a 2-second way to get it deployed inside your platform, that's probably the way to go. But yes, there's no drama with that.
Okay, let's so that we've got a way of sharing this stuff easier. The package managers could be a good way to go. It's a good way of us sharing the code as well. And it might be a bit bumpy to start off that process about how it all works, but I think that's a brilliant idea. Package manager on the GitHub repo. Let's share code. It's fantastic.
Yeah, definitely the way to go.
Yeah. I don't know what I can say about Chris. I've known Chris for a long time. He's actually presented to the group before, I believe. But I'll let Chris explain that. Chris works with Salesforce. I'll let Chris explain that in a little bit more detail. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for joining and being prepared to do this presentation. You came earlier in the year, I think it might have been last year, and said, look, I've got this thing I've done, I'd like to share it. And that's actually what inspired this whole sharing session. So I really appreciate you saying, I've done this thing, I'd really like to share it with the community. And out of that came, let's do an event where we share stuff. So you're the guy that made this happen.
I didn't know about that.
Over to you,
but thanks for having me. Appreciate it. My name's Chris Charalambous. I'm a solution engineer for Salesforce, specializing in marketing cloud. And for those who don't know, a solution engineer is pre-sales. We work with account executives or sales reps, and we work before the customer's bought, basically, to help them understand what the solution is and bring their pains, challenges, vision, etc. to life. The right software solution. Now, the reason I'm here today is there's a theme, and the theme is to be curious. It's a general thing that I would recommend everyone try and take on board, because that's really what drove everything. So before I share my screen, my cool thing I did with AMPscript, it all started when I joined Salesforce start of 2019. So cast your minds back, right? Pre-pandemic, in the office, and Salesforce Melbourne has an office that is hot desking. All right, there's no designated seats. You just walk in and whatever. And what I would notice is quite regularly that people would arrive after 9 o'clock and there'd be no desks. It was so common to have people just sort of walking around and around trying to find somewhere to sit, right? It sounds simple. And then one day, someone just said, frustratingly, they said, if I knew the office was going to be this busy, I wouldn't have bothered coming in. And I thought, surely software can solve this. Like, surely technology exists to solve this problem. And so I started thinking, like, how can you tell how busy the office is going to be, right? Because there might only be, 80 seats, but there's like 200 employees. It's hot desking. People are traveling and so forth, right? And we're kind of at capacity anyway. And I thought, how can you possibly work this out? And I started to think of ideas. And a lot of the ideas I came up with, I had to stop short with them because they required, there was too much work or required too much access. For example, maybe we would check the calendar, everyone's calendar somehow. And, if they had meetings in the office, then we would assume they were going to come in and then count up. And no, that was too hard. And I considered all these other ideas, but ultimately I was inspired by an idea from something I heard at Flight Centre once, which was to crowdsource the solution while working with Flight Centre. And that crowdsourcing idea made me think, well, what if everyone kind of voluntarily said the day before, yeah, I'm planning on coming in the office? And what if there was a way to kind of tally that up? And if there was enough people, more than the capacity, then it could send out like an alert, saying, hey, it's going to be busy, maybe work from home. Again, I consider all these possible things, maybe a Chrome extension or maybe an app and so on. But I wanted something simple, elegant, and the least amount of clicks or taps possible, because it's going to be crowdsourced. If people are going to get into it, you've got to make it easy. So I'd also recently learned that AusPost use Marketing Cloud, again, 3 years ago this is, for their deliveries. So you get an SMS from AusPost and it says, delivery coming, you're going to be home, reply 1 for yes, 2 for no, whatever. And so I started looking into our two-way text response messages inside of Mobile Connect. And as someone with a technical background, I was also keen to get my hands stuck in AMPscript to see what that could do. And I wondered, what if there was a text message that got sent out the night before you came in, like 8 o'clock the night before, to the employees saying, are you coming in the office tomorrow? Yes or no? And if you were, you just reply yes. And then Marketing Cloud could like gather all of those yeses and then work out, right, there's been, 50 people or 80 people, whatever the number is, say that they're coming in. And then the next morning, send out an alert, 7 a.m. saying, just a heads up, the office is busy this morning, consider working from home. Thereby alleviating that problem of, I wouldn't have come in the office if I knew I was going to be that busy. So that's kind of the background, the story of how it came to be. So now what I'll do is will go and try and share my screen if I can. I don't have sharing screen permissions, Eliot and Matt. My share screen button is grayed out. So do let me know if there's a way you can enable that for me. But in the meantime, what I will do, I'm now a host, and I have a visitor here, and so I'm just going to go.
Just whilst we're waiting for Chris to come back, I think he dropped out. Oh, he's back.
Yeah, I still the share screen button is still grayed out, unfortunately.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, let me go and set as host.
Thanks. While we're trying, I'm going to show you 3 things in the roughly. I've been going for 6 minutes, so roughly 5 to 10 minutes, Matt, that I have left. Is that right?
You have the time that you need to explain what you're doing.
Probably 10 minutes would be fine. While we try to get the share screen working, there's basically a solution. The first is the data model. So I started to think, how do we need to store the data? And so I thought, well, we're going to need something to store people, right, that are subscribed to this program and their mobile numbers and so forth. We're going to need, there we go. I've now got share screen. Thank you, Eliot. I'll go ahead and hit share there. Okay. I thought, we're going to need, I call that demographics, right? But we're going to need something to store people's details and their mobile number. I then thought we're going to need somewhere to store the responses. Are you coming in, yes or no? And so that's here. Subscriber key, date in the office. Now I'm using Contact Builder and they're all linked and stuff, but that's just for show. It doesn't really need to be. I'm not using Journey Builder or anything like that. Now, we don't want whether or not they're coming in the office or not. We also need to know where are they located? Where in the office, or what floor are they on, or what city they're in, and so forth. So I've got this office thing over here. And lastly, just a simple data extension to determine today's send. Now that's important because you'll actually see why in just a moment, why I needed to do that, because not every person who subscribed would necessarily need to receive the message. Then what I did is I set up a few automations to do things, one to kind of, do some sort of import thing, one to do a check. So it's all just basically SQL automations, right? One that would run every morning at 7 a.m. that would do a daily busy check. Is it busy? If so, right, it would send an SMS. And this here was, and these ones here, now you'll notice these two are running because they don't really send anything, do anything, but these two are paused. And for anyone who's noticed on the call, the thing that you will spot right here is the fact that they were paused 16th of March. So that tells you roughly how, when the pandemic hit and when we all started working from home. But what these would do is these would actually run a query to say, who do I need to send the SMS to at 8 o'clock at night? Why not everyone? The reason is because what I wanted, one of the biggest feedback, it's always important to get feedback on your solution. And one of the biggest feedbacks I got was, are you kidding? I don't want to get a bloody SMS every single night. But that's annoying. And so I thought, yeah, that actually is a bit annoying. It'd be good if I knew my movements and I knew I was coming in the office every day this week. When I get the message Sunday night, I just want to reply, not just why for yes, I'm coming. I want to reply why. 5 whys, Monday to Friday. And if I'm coming in every day but Friday, then I want to be able to reply Y, N. So I actually wrote the AMPscript to handle that, and as such, store that data inside of the data extensions over here, right? And therefore made the SQL sort of go in, look at it, and exclude anyone who'd already said that they either are or are not coming in the following day, so they wouldn't be annoyed. Okay, lastly, the actual send. And this is Mobile Connect. Now, basically, the way this works is it is 2 text response SMSs that this one's associated to Hotdesk, and it has a next keyword, Hotdesk 2. Hotdesk 2 is exactly the same as this, and its next keyword is Hotdesk. So you've got 2 text response SMSs whose next keyword is each other, right? And the reason for that is because I wanted to provide the ability to update, right? If you reply yes, and then half an hour later you make a mistake and go no, I wanted the response to be picked up by the same AMPscript logic. One lot of AMPscript, one bit of logic. Again, I wanted this to be really simple. At so many times I thought, oh God, I could just build a cloud page and just make this so much easier. But I didn't want to do that. Cloud pages are not secure. Well, you know, not secure. They're HTTPS, but they're not behind they're not behind authentication. And I didn't want to add an extra thing that people have to do. I want it all done in the text. And this is the AMPscript. So this is the last part of the call that I'll go through, which kind of looks a bit ugly here. So what I'll do is I'll just bring up something with a bit of formatting. The way I approach this, and this is kind of the final product. First up, doesn't really work. Up here, I wanted to handle the different types of responses, right? People could reply Y or yes or whatever. Anyway, the point is I wanted to represent it as a 1 or 0 because as you saw in my data extension, it is a Boolean, true, false. And that's easy, just cleaner to be done 1, 0. Next, based on the mobile number of the person writing in, I need to know where are they? What city are they in? What floor are they in? What desk area ID, the unique area of desks that they would be in. And so I'm doing a lookup inside that demographics to go fetch it, and also doing a little bit of validation here as well. Right? If the mobile number coming in is not in my data extension because I haven't officially got the, signed them up, again, we wanted to be safe and do it in a safe way, then I would sort of block them out. Next is the date. Now, this bit of logic here was interesting because, if you reply that if a text message gets sent at 8 o'clock, are you coming in tomorrow? And you say yes. Then when I record that you're coming in and the date you're coming in, it had to be tomorrow, right? Because the message was going on the night before. But what if you changed your mind the next day? That had to be recorded. That update was actually happening today, not the next day. So a bit of logic there. Then we wanted to do some kind of sense check here. Can't remember. But over here, this is where everything, sort of all the magic happens. So what I'm doing is I'm saying, right, well, check the response. As long as it's not one of these magic code words, right, which I've got to pause the program or resume, which I'll get to later. All right, go get the desk area. Go get the total capacity, right, for the desk area ID. That's important because, say, one floor in a building may have 80 seats and another may have something else. Then I check the response, and based on the response, right, what I want to do is essentially just insert a row, upsert data into the daily activity. It's basically quite simple there. And you'll also notice some checks here. That's also checking to see, have they already responded? That's why I've got some upserts versus insert. So I'm just doing some logic to say, has this person responded? Again, this is all just to make the code robust, right? Again, we have non-technical people using this. I want to make sure that whatever they write, I'm handling all those scenarios. Then we've got some logic here that says, well, if the string that came back wasn't just yes or no, and it was a longer string, then we want to process a multi-day response at any point. So if the message came out Tuesday night and you reply Y, that would mean that you're coming in Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So this is the logic here to sort of go ahead and loop through. There's a for loop here. We want to loop through and process all of that. Finally, I also wanted to have a thing that said, you know what, if the message goes out at 8 and everyone was replying and then you replied 8:50, well, if 8:50 it's already full, why not in the response of the text message, tell the person and go, office is full, consider working, so they don't have to wait for that 7 a.m. And so that's basically what I'm doing here, checking the number of people coming in tomorrow and check whether that desk area is at capacity. And if so, then we want to, change the message and so forth. Finally, there was some help. So again, I actually, almost like a command prompt, I actually had you could type in HD help and you get a list of commands and instructions of what you could actually reply and all the different things that you could do. And that's right on about 15 minutes. So that brings me to the end of everything that I wanted to show. It was an excellent initiative. We had all the solution engineers in Melbourne all subscribed, and things are going well, and we're looking at rolling out to the broader, starting to get broader. Our real estate team were getting involved, and then the pandemic hit. And then because of COVID vaccinations, we decided we need something a little bit more robust than an SMS system, of course, to be able to track things like vaccination status and a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's kind of where this ended up. But that brings me to the end. Thank you very much for having me. And I'll pause there to see if there's any questions.
Well, we actually might move straight forward to Cameron, who I understand has got a quick presentation, and then take questions at the end if that's okay, just to help the session flow. Cameron, you should be able to present now. And so, there we go.
All good. Thank you very much, Eliot and Chris. Great solution. Shame about that timing, though. It's a shame that the pandemic kind of took over and stole a thunder of that great solution there. I'd love to see more about that. Thank you. I don't have any slides, though, so I won't actually have a presentation for today, but I just want to chime in and say thank you so much for the efforts. Jarrett, again, great solution. Eliot, fantastic stuff to see. And definitely a call out to the community, the other people who are on this call. As Matt said, jump in, do a 1-minute presentation, show us what you can do, things you've done in your business or seen being done otherwise. There's so many great learnings we've all got from our different industries and verticals. Bring it along, show the community what you've done. There's a lot of great learnings to all be had together. So please make sure you reach out, sign up to that community group, and let Matt and the team know if you have any great content to share. I'll definitely be adding my stuff to it for next time, so I'll come prepared. But looking forward to see more solutions from the community. Good to see everyone on the call. And I'll pass it back to yourself, Eliot, or Matt.
I think in the spirit of what Cameron's just shared with us, if there's anyone on the call that's got something to share, we're doing Q&A now. Just make a note. Just ping Eliot in the chat and say, look, I've got something I'd like to share right now. So let's keep it rolling. And thanks, Chris. That was awesome. I just put my finger up, my thumb up, my thumb to say that it was awesome. But you can't see me. So. Anyway.
Actually, a good conversation point, Matt, would be for any of the members of the community who would love to share some things, are there any other channels that you can invite them to communicate with yourself and the rest of the Community Trailblazer community group on? There is a website. You mentioned, is there a LinkedIn group as well?
There is, with the LinkedIn group. We always share with the members after any of these events what the video and any guests or any scripts that were shared. So we'll make sure to share all those details there. I will put those in the chat now. So if anyone's following along, they can pick them up there as well.
Good. We do have a question, and I will just walk one for Chris here. And I would like to partially answer it and tack on another question. So from Andrea, wanted to know why you actually need 2 keys. Why would they answer the same key the second time? And I'll go and send a great video on this, which about next keywords in Marketing Cloud, which kind of might help unpack that. But Chris, do you want to mention that? And then I've got a question.
Yeah, no worries. So I'll preface this by saying I was 2 months into my role. I was 2 months into figuring out what Mobile Connect was. The second thing I'll say is I knew that with the next keyword, you can create great daisy chains, right? This one sends you to this one, sends you to this one, and each one does something different. But that's not what I wanted, because the thing I was afraid of was that if the message went out, go to the next keyword, right? Okay, this is the next keyword. All my logic's here, right? Okay, I replied yes. Great, do the logic, update the data, reply back, thank you very much. Finish. Okay, if that happened and then they made a mistake, or they change their mind, or they, you know, whatever. I wanted to make it easy for them to simply reply and actually update their answer and reply back and with a simple N because they've updated it. I thought about, well, I could, you know, maybe write in the message, if you want to change it, then just reply back the keyword and that might kickstart it off. But I was really wanting to keep it simple. I knew who the users were going to be, and they weren't people who knew Mobile Connect, New AMPscript in the way, knew how things worked. I was really trying to go for simplicity and just say, hey, if you want to change, just reply. Which reminds me of one other question, actually, I forgot to cover. For those of you who don't know, there's a 60-minute default time frame in the response window, and that can be quite annoying, especially if you don't see the text until a bit later. Some of our customers, you can log a ticket and you can get it extended. It wasn't really appropriate. We share long codes at Salesforce amongst SEs that are sort of dev ones. And so what's funny is in the end, I got a few complaints saying, hey, I went to edit it, I replied and nothing happened. Because I couldn't extend the window, I had to actually, in the end, add a little instruction at the bottom saying, I don't know, something like reply in 60 minutes, otherwise reply hot desk, or I don't know, something just to give them that instruction. So I was learning as I was going.
Yeah, so, and just on that, Chris, so firstly, fortunately, yeah, it was annoying part of that, of those message change, and that conversation window was only open for 60 minutes. You know, that now has changed. It can be open indefinitely, and it is available in the UI. It was kind of introduced a couple of years ago, so, or at least, which is great. Also, I've also used that technique to, I guess, keep the subscriber trapped in a kind of continual loop using this next keywords to pass back and forth. There is an AMPscript end SMS conversation to eject them from that, you know, if needed. But just bear in mind, if you do have a message conversation, you kind of need to have a dedicated long code or short code if you're in the US, because then you can't send them another message because they don't know what message you're replying to. So yeah, but it's yes, it's really neat that you can create this infinite loop of keeping a conversation alive and someone kind of trapped in.
Absolutely. Also great for debugging.
Yeah.
Just want to say too, what a great call out. I did not know, Eliot, that you could now modify the conversation duration. I'm logging into my instance right now to check that out.
Yeah, I thought but by default it's now an open window. It's indefinite, yeah, it used to be 60 minutes. Now I'm going to tell you kind of a story that, you know, I often joke you learn Marketing Cloud by making mistakes. And there was this case that we were sending an SMS out to 160,000 people about related to their credit cards. It was for a major bank, and I tested all the different scenarios, and it was a similar text response message on the kind of using the next keyword, where they can opt in to receive credit card limit increase consent, and it all worked perfectly, and just all the different permutations. And then that people started then calling up the customer service.
Oops, that's right. Wait for Eliot to come back. But for those who have also learned a brand new thing today, I can absolutely confirm that inside your Mobile Connect in the administration tab, when you go into your mobile long code and then you open up the short code section, you'll find that when you click on that short code, the conversation window can be modified. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So thank you, Eliot.
That's okay. Yeah, no worries. Sorry, my AirPods failed then, but I was just going to add that yes, I kind of learned it by mistake, and then Salesforce said, "Oh yes, it does expire after 60 minutes, but you had to open a support case."
So just confirming that it can be longer than 60 minutes.
It can be
right now.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing days, hours, minutes.
So it can be forever.
Yeah, it can be always open.
I'm only seeing a option to go up to 7 days because the value cannot exceed 10,080 minutes according to the interface.
Right. Okay. Maybe
from an SNS point of view, that's forever, isn't it?
Exactly right. SMS should be right now.
Cool. That's great to know.
Exactly right. Definitely solves Chris's use case, which is great.
Yep.
Although I do wonder, Chris, with the pandemic now slowing down and with the acquisition of Slack, I wonder if Slack is your next interface to make this interaction capability with.
Do we have a API Marketing Cloud for Slack without a custom activity yet or not?
Oh, I've got a video on that actually. You can do. It's a bit tricky, a bit cheeky, but you can do it.
Excellent. I think also what we're learning about is some of the hidden secrets inside Marketing Cloud. Eliot mentioned the package program, which isn't documented earlier for looking at automation tasks. We're hearing now from Cameron about these undocumented features for SMS, or at least as far as I'm concerned, you can't read the documentation and see those. So valuable learnings. Thank you.
It's our pleasure to contribute, and definitely, again, the open mic call to the audience and to the community. Make sure you jump in. We've all got different industries, businesses, and backgrounds we've come from, and there's always really intriguing solutions that get organically grown from what your business requirements are, what roles you've been in, and even just frictions you've found with customers you work with. So definitely bring those interesting ideas and solutions through to Matt and the team, because you've got a willing audience who can't wait to see what these things look like. And again, it may seem like it's a very simple thing to you, but we can all learn something new. I just learned something new myself, so everyone can learn something new today.
Where would we be without Stack Exchange?
Indeed. And on that note, unfortunately, I'm going to have to drop off. So I'll leave it in your capable hands, Matt, to kind of wrap up the evening, but all day, depending where you are located. But yeah, thanks for attending.
As do I. Thank you very much, everyone.
Very nice.
Thank
All right,
you.
Matt, over to you.
And I guess when Eliot drops off, he's hosting this meeting. We'll all drop off the meeting as well. So thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you so much for organising that.